For the broader anime community, the name Ufotable is now pretty much synonymous with good animation, the best animation even. But most people just think it's the budget being thrown into a particular project. It's like a project vending machine that Ufotable just shoves money into, and then the vending machine makes a perfectly polished anime, and then they just pick it up and then give it to you. If you want to know exactly how and why Ufotable is able to dish out high quality projects so consistently, you can watch this video that I made around a year back. And in that video, I also talk about the people behind Ufotable, the cogs of the well-oiled machine that is Ufotable. I'll just talk about them again here briefly. There are 5 in particular I want to talk about. And for one of them, I'll be going into full detail. And if you read the title of the video, you already know who that is. The first person I'm going to talk about is Toshiyuki Shirai. For Ufotable, he has the role of the main episode director, but in a very different way from how the other major episode directors do their work for the other shows. For example, when Atsushi Kobayashi directs Vinland Saga episodes, or for example, when Shotaku Shizuno leads his particular episodes for the big projects that he works in, it is done deliberately to give a sense of change. Episode 8 of Chainsaw Man in particular felt so different from the other episodes in tone, and partly that was definitely because of the source material, but also a major reason for that was Shotaku Shizuno's directing. And that's what these genius episode directors do for their particular episodes. Toshiyuki Shirai is not like that though. When he's directing an episode, it does not feel like it's done for a sense of change, to just break the formula. Instead of going against the formula to make something special, he's actually perfected the Ufotable formula, and that's how he makes the project special. Let's take episode 10 of Yuukaku-hen for example. Just raw animation wise, putting it with Mob Psycho season 3 episode 8 or like the high priority Naruto episodes from a decade ago, even 2 decades ago, the keyframe count is nothing special. But he still managed to make that episode one of the best action spectacles I've ever witnessed in my life, solely through his directorial skill of making spectacle impressive, because he understands what makes a spectacle so appealing. He knows exactly what scenes to extend. He knows what scenes to cut short on. Long explanation on how Tengen's technique works that completely kills the pacing, or done. Show don't tell approach at its finest, which is something that's thoroughly lacking in Demon Slayer because Sotazaki's less than spectacular directing. He's more like a safe bet when it comes to the choice of a series director. I wouldn't really call him the most impressive director or anything. That's probably because there weren't any other good nominations. Coming to Shirai though, his genius is backed by the amazing production conditions that Ufotable consistently gets, and also the amazing amount of in-house talent. They have genius animators who make those storyboards come to life in the best way possible, genius animation directors who make sure that the animation looks as good as possible, and of course, one of the best, if not the best directors of photography in the industry to make sure everything stays in pristine condition. I'm of course talking about Yuuichi Terao, his ability to take mediocre animation and turn that into something very impressive to look at, and take already impressive animation to different heights. Another underrated talent that he has is that he's also a genius director. His storyboards in the finale of season 1 of Demon Slayer rivals Shirai's work. Then we have Akira Matsushima, character designer and animation director, industry veteran at the highest possible fucking level. Demon Slayer character designs, the manga designs, they have like their own appeal, but they're also not very good in some cases. For example, I fucking hate how the body structure of every single character is the same. All 3 of them have the same 3 sizes and the same fucking height. Matsushima does adapt that into the anime as well, but his own character designs that he made for the anime are fucking spectacular. The choice to have thick, uneven outlines and octagonal irises, they're just so goddamn unique, and also very difficult to ensure that the lines have the perfect level of evenness from all sides. Not easy to do, but he's such an incredible animation director that he makes sure that those things are consistent. When was the last time you saw an off-model character in Demon Slayer? Answer, never. Of course, none of this, that is the direction, photography and animation direction, even matters if the animation isn't good. But Ufotable shines even in that aspect. They have Mitsuru Obunai, they have Go Kimura, and they have 2 that I want to specifically highlight. Of course, one being Masayaki Kunihiro. He's like the backbone of Ufotable, has not even worked with other projects. Like, he does not even go with a pen name on other projects. He prioritizes Ufotable and he only works in Ufotable. The quality of his output is of course amazing, but the quantity of it is also equally incredible. Now, I know this video is supposed to be an animator spotlight for Nozomu Abe, but I spent so much time talking about the rest of Ufotable. But I do believe that it was truly important. And I'm not saying that without Ufotable, Abe wouldn't be one of the top animators in the industry, but it is undeniable that he's able to maximize his potential because he works in Ufotable. Now, before I get into his technique breakdown, I just want to talk about his roots on how he progressed to be one of the best action animators in the industry. If you started following him recently, you might think it was Ufotable, which it's not. If you've been following him for some time, then you might think it was his works with Studio Shaft, like Mahou Shoujo Madoka Magica, where he was the main action animator. But it's not even that. The real breakthrough for him came pretty late. That was a show called Ikitosen. Now, Ikitosen is a show about stuffing in as much plot as possible into the action animation. But Ikitosen was something truly fucking special and ridiculous, especially because the rest of the production was fucking garbage. Like, the compositing was not very good, the art direction was just shit, and most of the techniques that defines who he is, that he uses till date, arise from his work in Ikitosen. The emphasis on thick, meaty smoke animation, large number of particles and debris, his animation in ones. Now, to be fair, he did animate on Ufotable. He animated on Karana Kyokai, the first movie, and it was just a basic ass scene. Then he went on and worked on Madoka Magica, where again he was the main action animator. He did a phenomenal job there, but still something was missing, and it was the complex, fluid, dynamic shifts in perspective that current Abe does regularly that was just missing from his other projects. And that's mainly because Abe just doesn't do background animation. Abe is a foreground and effects animator at heart, and at effects animation, he's one of the best in the industry, if not the best. And over the years, his emphasis on effects animation has only gone stronger because I'm sure he's passionate about it, which is why we see more and more spectacle animation from him. In fact, we only see spectacle animation from him. The last bit of incredible choreography-based animation that he did was for Fate Zero, which is easily one of his best works ever. Fucking gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous animation. But even then, with all the choreography shit being incredible, you can still see that he's focusing more on the effects animation. The effects here look absolutely stunning, and it draws the viewer's attention more than the tight choreography and the beautiful movements of the characters themselves do. Talking about animation styles, it is significant enough that if he starts animating, from the first few seconds, or like from the first like couple of seconds of his scene, you can tell it's Abe. And it's not from the character designs themselves, usually from the effects animation and the timing of his animation. Different to, like, let's say Yutaka Nakamura and Hironori Tanaka. You look at Nakamura Genga, you can see the designs. It's so easy to tell that this is Nakamura Genga. And again, with Tanaka Genga, from the insane amount of detail and the sheer quantity of small line work. But when Imai and Abe, they're animating, they also draw extremely detailed character designs, but they don't really have their own style when they draw the character model itself. Shading, yes, Nozomu Abe shading, it's very easy to tell that it's Nozomu Abe after you watch a lot of Abe's cuts. But from the character design themselves, Abe and Imai are very faithful to the actual character design sheet made by the character designers. He does use cubic debris. It does not have the classic Yutapon timing. It is very similar though, but not enough Yutapon to be called Yutapon cubes. Another thing that is significant in his animation is the usage of impact frames, which again, I'm not saying Yutaka Nakamura invented impact frames, but the way Abe uses impact frames is kind of similar to the way Yutapon uses impact frames, which is everywhere. Nozomu Abe is technically also a storyboard artist because he most likely storyboards his own segments. Emphasis on eye detail is huge when Nozomu Abe animates, and it's very similar to like a umakoshi eye-like technique, but it's not distorted in a Kannada-esque way. For Nozomu Abe, it's either the camera just coming very close to the eyes and then going past. It'll be like this. The next frame will be here, absolutely eye in focus, and then the next frame you're further away from the camera. Again, he does that a lot. And I mean like a lot. And from the examples that I will use to break down his animation, you'll see just how much he uses them. When he gets close to the eye and it's moving past it, he also uses a lot of smears. And the kind of smears he uses are very similar to Arifumi Imai's smears. And in fact, his animation style as a whole is more similar to Arifumi Imai's than it is to other animators. The differences in Abe's and Imai's styles: Imai uses a lot of smears, and the way he uses them, he absolutely distorts the characters to their limit. Abe rarely does that. He rarely breaks character model even. The rare cases he does do that is when the characters are moving so fast, you just don't even need to bother drawing them at all. You just draw a smear in the place of where the character was and just be done with it. Don't get me wrong, he does use a lot of smears, as much as other animators do. It's just not as extremely smeary as other animators. You can just look at Naoto Shishida's animation. Naoto Shishida absolutely does not use smears, like at all. And to be fair, his animation is quite a bit stiff, but not nearly as stiff as you would expect it to be, because he compensates for it by drawing almost everything in ones. Ones, for those of you who don't know, is animating one drawing per frame of the scene. So what you're watching animates usually 24 FPS. So animation in ones would mean making 24 drawings every second. And again, that's why Shida's animation has this sense of fluidity, even though the characters themselves are very stiff. But I'd say Nozomu Abe has perfected the ones style of animation, because not only does he animate in ones frequently, the characters don't even come off as stiff because he does use smears, which not only makes the animation in ones look more fluid, but also gives him more freedom when it comes to speed of the animation. Like if you look at Shida's animation, they're usually the same speed, which makes it look kind of robotic. For Abe, he constantly switches between speeds, which is another technique that he uses. He constantly switches between just the right fast pace animation to extreme slow-mo animation, which is another reason his animation style looks similar to Imai's style, to me at least. Again, Imai animates a lot of his stuff in ones, and his animation speed, the timing, is similar to Abe in the sense that he animates in a fast pace, not too fast, just the right amount of fast, such that even in the most chaotic sequences, the animation is always front and center and you never lose track of the characters. Not as fast as, let's say, Yutaka Nakamura's sequence from the latest My Hero Academia opening, where you have to go frame by frame to truly appreciate what's happening here. And yes, when these two animate, it's true slow motion, the way they're animating it. Masayuki Kunikuruha, as his timing constantly shifts between fast, slow, like look at this scene, for example. And that's how he always animates. You look at any other scene animated by him, it's always a dance between fast motion, holding a pose, fast motion, holding a pose. But what he's doing is not slowing down the sequence itself. It's not slow motion. He's slowing down the movements of the characters themselves. The pose holding is just build up. It's anticipation, just so that the release becomes more satisfying. And then there's a frantic release, and then he holds the pose again. But again, he's not using slow motion. For Abe and Imai, they are not slowing down the characters. The way they build anticipation is through proper slow motion. So this is his scene from episode 6 of Yuukaku-hen. This is like the most Abe scene to ever have Abed, where he uses almost all of the techniques that he does use in animation. And it's an easy way to showcase all of his techniques and to talk about them. So starting off, this is the scene where Tanjiro pins all of Daki's obi in place. And immediately there's a way to tell that this is Abe. First of all, the compositing overhaul for this segment, that's special. Because Abe's sequences, as much as people call it the money shot, is unironically kind of accurate. Because Ufotable as a whole, the team working on Demon Slayer and all of their projects, also prioritizes Abe's sequences. Animated in ones here, the sword coming down, very minute smears, and it's not really even smears as it is kind of mild distortion that they're doing. Flashes to black, flashes to white, and then comes back. And then this is a slow motion now. Slow motion sequence. So already we see like a really fast paced sequence cut to a slow motion sequence as Abe does. And I can't tell if this OB is CGI or not. If I had to guess, it's probably 2D. But anyway, you can see that Tanjiro's cape, it's not really a cape, jacket, what am I supposed to call it, haori, really fluid animation. It's animated in twos. Next is the Daki scene where you'll see the eye close up. That actually already happened. I have to go by frame to actually show it to you. Again, face close to the camera, not as close as he does usually. Very cool smear that actually extremely distorted. And there we go. Goes from here, skips it all the way to here. Her eye is totally in front of the camera, and the classic Abe style jagged lines is not as smeared as it usually animates the eye smear, but it's still pretty smeared. And in the literal next drawing is this far away. So we went from this to this to this. And this one frame in motion, it makes just that little bit of difference, which is just what he wants. Like right now, I know what to look for, which is why I always see the eye in the corner there. Medium paced movements, then cuts completely to slow motion. He uses slow motion for anticipation here. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Building anticipation. Boom. So cool. The way the belts just distort and come together. Because the belts have been barely moving for a lot of frames now. And then all of a sudden, they make such rapid motions. And that is just how Abe makes satisfying timing. Again, the multiples here, it's almost as if it's tearing off. And then the wind animation to just show how powerful the coming together of the clothing really is. And then go back to slow motion, that too. So again, we have slow motion, an abrupt movement, and then go back to slow motion. And then this struggle, it's also really well animated because you can tell that there's a lot of strain being put on the OB right now because it's being pulled from both directions. And the way he's showing that, it's via animation. It's via the smears. The way the smears are just moving, the way Abe is showing that the OB is being pulled from both directions is via these shiny shadow-like objects that just move past your screen. To understand that doing this, making a jagged shadow in the center, and making it look like the shadows themselves are being pulled apart and then joining together as if it's like glitching, knowing that that will have an effect in the audience's mind, which will make the audience think that the OB is being pulled apart is genius. Coming up with something like that is genius, which is why I'm so in love with 2D animation, because all of this is coming from the creator's brain. Things like this you won't even get from reference, which is why it's so cool. And again, the 3D work is really good here. The OB is 100% 3D here. When Tanjiro gets into his ready stance, look at the glow. Just a slight glow. Just him getting into his stance has that Hinokami glow on his face and his fist, which is so cool. And again, look at how fluidly this 3D is flowing here and how that perfectly matches with Tanjiro's hair and cape. His hair and cape is here animated by Abe, but Abe has nothing to do with the way the OB is moving here. He's setting up this scene from the previous scene. You can see a special glow on him that's pulsing. That's again the compositing team doing wonders. And for the absolute last few frames for this cut, look at how that gets really bright. Setting up for the next scene for Abe's animation, and then we get the Abe animation. As I said, for a really rapid movement, like when he does for Zenitsu's cut from episode 17, he just absolutely tears the character model apart. Also love how his sword is just a fucking lightsaber here and then explodes. Tanjiro is not even here. And then the camera plays catch up with Tanjiro. Look at how smeary he is. Really cool cut of animation. And then all of this is animated in ones. Love how the fire is splitting apart from the blade. Love that. The dispersion here. Awesome to look at. Again, classic Abe style smears. This is not what his shoe looks like. These are supposed to be straight lines. Again, the way he uses smears are so unique. Like, he's drawn the line here. It is a full line, but he's also drawn jagged line on top of that full line. And it works. And close up again. This is all animated in ones. So these two drawings last for 1 frame each. 1/12 of a second is what these 2 frames last for. These 2 drawings last for. So in real speed, that goes by very quickly. You barely register it. It is so well drawn. And that's the speciality about Abe Genga. It's just always extremely well drawn. Abe is again switching to slow motion. Boom. Slow motion again. Lasts for a very short period of time. Look at how short that is. Already switching. So he's giving just enough time for the viewer to process what the fuck's happening and then moves on to the next scene because he's not done yet. This is not the climactic moment of the scene. He needs to switch. So he just builds the bare amount of anticipation for the next scene and then moves forward. And this is just, yeah. That's very good. This is just fucking incredible. All animated in ones. A little bit of some of it is in twos. But again, over the character art, what's impressing me more is the effects animation. The satisfaction behind each slice. All the slices have so much power behind them as well, as seen by the exaggerated smear on the effects animation. This is a sword. And this is his sword, not like this, but like this. So it is smearing all the way from up here to down here, which is why it looks so powerful. Again, just the right amount of anticipation before each slice. Here, the slice is done. Ready for the next slice. 1, 2, 3. And then that build-up is released for the next slice. And then again, the arc is completed. Beautiful circular arc. He does not even hold that. Tanjiro just keeps going with that. He just keeps rotating. Another slice. Just look at the sheer quantity of effects here. Crazy. Again, this is nothing by Abe standards of quantity of effects animation. Quality-wise, it's of course fucking incredible. But quantity-wise, this is nothing. And yeah, he does a full wheel here, the flame wheel. And then he keeps going again. A horizontal slash this time. Does a full rotation. Again, look at how well drawn every single one of these drawings are. Look at how incredible this looks. It's all done in once. I'm skipping singular frames here. As I'm skipping singular frames, the drawing keeps changing. He's animating with such a high level of detail in ones. Again, look at how detailed this is. Look at how good this drawing is. I could just turn it black and white and it would just look as detailed as a manga panel, which already is something that does not happen in anime. But add to that the fact that this is just one drawing among a series of other drawings animated in once. And you see why Abe is so incredible. Another very good close-up of the eye with Abe style smears. The jagged smears are so classic. It's very hard to draw these smears as well because he's just drawing straight lines, but jagged. So he's still completely drawing the model. And again, these ink smears that look like they belong in a different layer. I don't know if that's done by the finishing crew or by Abe because this looks like it's on my screen. It looks like it's on the camera and not on the characters themselves. If it's a new technique that's Abe's using, that's very cool. And again, once the fast stuff is done, so fast, and then immediately cut to slow motion. The next cut, we are just playing catch up. The camera is moving in front of everything that's just happened. Kind of sad that this is all blurred out, but again, it's a still frame. And then the camera moves a little bit forward. Look at that. Camera moves a little bit forward and then comes back. And with that final step that Tanjiro has taken here, look at that. The energy just being released from that step. It's like all that energy just catching up to Tanjiro. The camera first catches up to Tanjiro, and then that energy just explodes from there. So cool. Abe's signature meaty smoke effects. It's very thick smoke, and Ufotable compositing team does an amazing job at never blurring the smoke out, which I really appreciate. I love when smoke animation is not blurred out. And we're talking about Ufotable here, where everything is heavily composited, but for scenes like this, for smoke, where other studios and other projects, smoke is heavily composited upon and makes it semi-transparent. But for Abe sequences, the smoke is never made transparent. It's rarely made translucent even. It's usually opaque. When Abe is animating, the effects animation is front and center because that is the most important component of animation to him, and Ufotable respects his ideas, and the compositing is done accordingly to not obstruct any of the beautiful effects animation. And again, the slow motion is just so incredible to look at. All animated in once. I'm skipping singular frames here again. Just look at that fire animation. Look at how much of it there is. Look at the thick line work on top of the fire effects animation. Nobody does that. You won't see thick line work around the effects themselves, especially for fire animation. But they're treating the animation, the effects animation here as their own models. It's not just effects animation to fill the screen. No, just like how Daki is a character on screen who has line work around her, the effects here, the fire effects, are also treated as characters on screen that have their own individual line work. Again, singular frames is all I'm skipping. This is all animated by Abe. Gorgeous slow motion, and it's so fluid in real time because it's all animated in once. And once the fire particles, they dissipate, look at that. That's gone back to a neutral color. It's just the moonlight hitting his face right now. That is the only source of light right now. The slow shifting compositing perfectly according to Abe's effects animation. Stuff like that can only happen when there's perfect communication between the animator and the compositing team, which of course Ufotable is all about. Just look at this and this. So one thing you might have noticed from the way he draws effects, that he does not give a shit about realism. He invents his own style of effect, his own style of explosions, his own style of smoke, his own style of fire, his own style of lightning. The reason Abe has his own style of effects animation is because he's focused on one and only one thing when it comes to his animation: maximum satisfaction for the viewer. Now about what I just said, which is abandoning realism, the pursuit of the most satisfactory animation possible. I have two examples to show you, both from Demon Slayer, and this is Abe's first scene that he animated for Demon Slayer. I recently rewatched Demon Slayer and I came to realize that the first few episodes are a chore to get through. There were multiple points where I was like, this is just not interesting, maybe I should drop it. It was until this scene that I felt that, because this scene not only like fixes Zenitsu's character, well, it's not like fixing, it's more like a character revelation, but it's also the coolest piece of animation that we had gotten so far. I thought that he was just going to be busy with Heaven's Feel, so he's not going to animate in Demon Slayer, but I mean, it's Ufotable planning. You gotta handle props to them. They handle Demon Slayer, a 26 episode show, while also doing like Heaven's Feel movies, the Heaven's Feel trilogy, which is their best works yet. Classic Abe style smears. Again, he's not like drawing smears, he's just changing the outline of the character itself into smears. Just that little puff of smoke there already looks so sick. It's amazing. Again, the lighting, the compositing is just so well done. The art direction really sets the mood. So you would think placing a brown/yellow character in front of a brown background would not allow this character to pop out. But look at that. This is exactly what they're doing here. It's because of the way Ufotable uses vignette.
Vignette.
If you look at the edges of the screen, it's dark. And the center where Zenitsu is standing, it's bright. So you can't just introduce artificial light. They do that. They just introduce artificial light in some scenes. But in this case, the light is introduced from the top. There's a light on top, placed perfectly on top of Zenitsu. The scene was just storyboarded, structured in a way such that Zenitsu will be well lit. Love the extensive line work on Zenitsu's forehead here. It's not digital lines like Attack on Titan final season. This is hand-drawn lines. And of course, the breath, the smoke coming out of his mouth with the breath, really gorgeous. This is just so well storyboarded. The pose is just so fucking energetic. So this is just taking the full advantage that 2D animation provides, and the advantage that 2D animation provides is just limitless creativity. The only limitation is up here. And of course, what allows him the freedom to do this, what allows him to do this complex rotation shot is the fact that he's with Ufotable. As I said before, Abe does not do background animation. So for doing a complex rotation shot like this, he needs to have a perfect background, which Ufotable provides. This is a 3D background. Not only is it a very good 3D background, look at how it's distorted properly. And now, this is also what I'm talking about, the artificial light, right? The way they are using
vignette.
Everything else is darkened. So why is there light on Zenitsu? There is no light source here. In the previous cut, we at least saw a light source from the top. Here, there's no light source, but still Zenitsu is well lit. He's adding shading. It's not like Zenitsu is just one color here. There's a lot of shading on Zenitsu as well. So there is a light source, but it's an imaginary light source that they have not even placed here. Just let the guy make whatever the fuck he wants to. And the reason the 3D background is particularly impressive here, because it is working alongside the animation of Nozomu Abe. You can tell that the background is also sort of like a fisheye background. And just the care and effort put into that background as you're shifting through perspective. You can see the background shifting in perspective as well. Of course, the rotation, by the way, completely done in once, but I don't think I need to keep saying that for Abe cuts. Every impactful scenes, he will fully animate that in once. And it's not only Zenitsu shifting in perspective, it's also the kid in the background. And then all of this anticipation that he's built up, not really anticipation. Anticipation should be, it's a terminology that should be used for animation. Suspense, all the suspense that he's building up and released. So fucking gorgeous. Not just his animation that's gorgeous. Look at the background. Look at the artwork in the background. Because it's not necessarily part of his impact frame. This is just the art direction and compositing team working hand in hand. This geniusly painted background just lasts for one frame. And then we switch to Abe's gorgeous impact frames. Again, just one impact frame, flash to a white background, and then move forward. Gorgeous smoke animation, gorgeous beam of energy that's passing through, and of course the electricity. The light blue electricity has like a dark blue outline, and the beam just dissipating forwards. There's a reason I keep saying he's the best at effects animation, and this is it. Again, the smoke is opaque. It's completely blocking our view on this kid here. There's of course also kind of translucent smoke like this portions, but the smoke clouds themselves, they're almost always opaque. At least that's the way Abe does them. And the kid, again, in the background, he's also animated. Like he's being hit with the recoil of Zenitsu's speed. Classic Abe shot, closing in on a character, ending with an extremely high amount of eye detail. And look at this shot. Again, it is so well done. It's so impressive artistically, which is the freedom that Ufotable provides to Abe. He decided that he wants to make this look like traditional Japanese art. And it looks fucking sick. The beam cuts through the tongue and the neck. Next shot again, passing through that Zenitsu's body passing through. He appears on model first, but then he's more smeary, and then he's pretty much on model again, as on model as you can call this. Then he completely vanishes, just the electricity, lightning left, and then he appears fully. It's as if he's moving faster than light itself. So even if he got to a point, he's still invisible at that point because light hasn't reflected off of him yet. So light is finally catching up to him. So that's his interpretation of that idea. Now getting to the reason why I am breaking down this scene in the first place, which, as I said before, is exaggeration by removing the idea of realism. Look at this slice, right? This is the beam that showcases the slice. It goes perfectly through the neck area of the demon. But Zenitsu is levels lower than that. So the arc of the light should actually go like this, right? Ending to his sword. But it's going straight and it's going past Zenitsu. It literally makes no sense. It should be an arc that moves downwards towards Zenitsu's sword. Or, at the very least, it should be just a straight arc that ends here, where Zenitsu is standing. It should not go beyond Zenitsu, because Zenitsu is not going beyond this point. So why did Abe animate this like this? Only one reason, and that's because it's more satisfying to look at. If it ended here, it just wouldn't be as satisfactory as the beam just passing straight through, like straight through the middle of the screen. The light dissipation as well. Look at how the beam just slowly travels forward. It's just so sick. Again, this is just absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if this is again animated by Abe, this impact frame that is, because it's really just negative colors. And also the fact that the light source is appearing as an impact frame here, which is like so sick and unique. And then we have all this smoke animation. Again, just a ridiculous quantity of smoke animation. And then again, genius artwork. You look at the Genga for this, you'll see why I keep saying that Nozomu Abe is an incredible artist. Really fast motion, and then he slows everything down. Zenitsu here is moving at a regular speed. The way he's sheathing his sword, it's at regular speed. Blood spurting out of the demon is also in regular speed, but everything else is still slow motion. Zenitsu's Haori, it's moving in slow motion. The ridiculous amount of smoke that he's animated here, all moving slow motion. Another example I want to use is his scene from episode 19, which is perhaps his most iconic scene ever. So the first segment of the scene is just really detailed animation, nothing else. And as we move forth, that's when the scene really blows up. So we slowly zoom in on Tanjiro and Rui. Again, the ufotable background really working perfectly with Abe's animation here. And here again, I love how every single component is animated by Abe, about Rui that is. Like even as we zoom in and the writing on his eye, that gains more detail. So this was also written by Abe. I love how the line work is done here. It does not have the thick black line work that it usually does. It has line work that fits this particular scene. This honestly looks like the line work that you would see from No Game No Life. And then the way Tanjiro emerges through the fire. That animation is just so sick. If I skip frames, very zoomed in view of Tanjiro's eyes, and then zoom back out. Abe loves doing that. Again, the sheer quantity of effects put here. This is not just Adobe After Effects. There's nothing digital in this even. I don't think so. No digital effects. Yep, everything here is animated by Abe. And then extremely smeared arm of Tanjiro just coming into motion, completely blacked out there. Build up, tons of build up, and then incredible impact frames to just release it. Rui is remaining stationary for the build up and pretty much for the release. He barely moves. The impact here is emphasized via the effects animation. If you look here, the effects animation is all on this side, and then when he's releasing all that energy to the other side, he's literally releasing that via the effects. Look at how much particles is coming out of the other side now. When you're viewing it in motion, you really see the scene play out with the intended timing. Boom! It's so nice. And he shows that from another angle as well. Crazy level of effects animation here. So many layers of effects animation. He does the same thing. Flash and black first, but this time there's also flash to a white screen. Now we get to see awesome impact frames. And then all that energy released from the other side. Rui's model again, barely shifting at all. And only in motion do you properly get to see all that power. Really cool slow motion shot. The effects animation here done in twos. Again, holding the slow-mo. Really nice focus shift to now focus on Tanjiro and his Hanafuda mainly. Really cool bit of character acting. Focus on the eye, of course, Abe. And then the blood burst mixing with his sword technique. And then gorgeous impact frames here, of course. This is just so clean. It's like he's drawing that same drawing, but completely with jagged lines. It must take so much time to do this. Yeah, it must take so much time. Imagine just sitting for a day and just drawing lines, and then it just fucking slices through. So gorgeous. Look at how impressive that arc is. Fantastic storyboarding, and of course his animation backs it up. Using slow motion for anticipation for the build-up. And boom, release in the most awesome way possible. And once he releases all that energy, he goes back to slow motion again. Abe's timing is spectacular. I love Abe's animation timing. It's just so satisfying to watch. Look at this impact frame. This impact frame is a work of art. And this is the other cut that I wanted to talk about, where Abe emphasizes on the satisfaction of the scene instead of focusing on realism. The beam of fire here, right? So the beam starts here, moves along with the sword. So this is where Tanjiro's arm rests at the final point. All the way back here, it does not go any bit further than that. The beam of fire should stop here. It should be slightly more than a semicircle, so slightly more than a 180-degree arc, but it goes past that. His sword is here, the beam is still there. His sword reaches here, beam coming there, sword here, beam there, sword here, beam there. Okay. But now his sword is stationary, the beam of fire is still moving, and it forms a perfect circle. So this portion of the fire should not be created. It makes no sense for that portion to exist. If he focused on realism there, if he focused on stopping the fire at this point, would it be as satisfactory as a perfect ring of fire? Answer is an obvious no, because this is one of the most satisfying shit I've ever seen from animation. After the impact frames, I just love how all the layers of FX animation now pop in. So there are like 6 layers of FX animation that I can spot, that which is kind of low by Abe standards, but then again I'm sure there are more actually. It's of course Ufotable's compositing that's taking the scene to the next level. The background is very dark, there's no light source. These guys are well lit up though because of Tanjiro's sword. And after the attack, look at the ground, right? The ground is fucking illuminated by the ring of light. And not only that, the light is also bouncing off of the trees in the background. That's a painted background that is interacting with the foreground in terms of light. It's fucking crazy that Ufotable is able to pull this shit out. Fast motion, slow motion, and then ending with a slow motion sequence. Extremely good artwork. If you told me who drew this, I would probably just say fucking Akira Matsushima. I don't even think that this was even corrected by Matsushima. This is just Abe's artwork, because Abe is just that good at art in itself. If he wasn't an animator, he would probably be like the world's greatest mangaka or something, because he's just that good at art. Stay tuned for part 2 of this video, where I'll be breaking down Abe's most iconic and most impressive animation sequences. I swear that I'll release it this year. That's about it. Thanks for the views.